So I woke up this morning to Team Croatia being banned from the IESF Esports World Championship, and I wanted to check out the demo because a lot of people are saying this Mackie guy was using radar, and I'm interested in seeing, was their whole team cheating, which a couple of people have said, or was it just this one guy, and what do they actually look like? Was he like aimbotting, or, some people are saying radar, and that seems to make the most sense. And as far as these teams go, a lot of these are kind of like mixed teams, but it seems like they try and pick the core from one roster. So the core of this team that Mackie's from is actually a team called Lotus on HLTV, and I believe they have like 3 players in Team Croatia. And then on the other side, you've got Israel that they cheated against, or maybe they cheated against everyone, who's got Shushan. I think he follows me on Twitter. But anyways, the first round really isn't all that interesting, but some interesting stuff happens pretty much immediately into the next round, because Croatia actually win the round. Then they're just going to go for some heavy mid control, which is, what you're expecting. There's a window flash, everything's normal. But then on the A side, Crocop it's not unbelievable that someone goes out A and like looks for a pick. I've seen Blame F do this plenty of times. But then he's gonna like quick switch to run forward, which is wild. And, it might make some sense. I guess you could argue it if like Sego hears them all, running up cat, but he actually doesn't, because I believe they're walking pretty much the whole way, right? So Crocop doesn't know that A is empty, and he's acting like he thinks someone could be in A, but he literally, at what point are you thinking, I'm playing against an eco, I'm pulling my knife out to like get out A quicker? That is just unbelievable to me. That actually is just completely crazy. But I mean, the question is like Mackie, does he have radar and he's telling his teammates? Or, maybe you have a Crocop and Mackie, or just Crocop are using radar and they're not telling their teammates, so some of the team knows and some of the team doesn't. When you're looking at it, everyone on the team, I believe, was banned, but at least everyone was banned for like 6 months, but maybe they banned someone else, like the people that actually were detected using cheats, for longer. Or it could be that they just found, when Akuma was accused of cheating, we don't know for sure they were cheating. I want to kind of compare this because we do seem to know that fairly certainly these guys are cheating. I want to compare this a little bit to the Akuma situation. They would do a lot of things that were like unbelievably suspect, that they would like go towards mid, like set up for a mid take, and then Navi would be stacking mid and they'd just cancel the mid take and run back to A, which is crazy. So I want to kind of compare that a little bit and see if these guys are kind of at that level. But first gun round, so I've done this review before, and the recording kind of like corrupted. So I remember seeing this, and this was very weird. So initially I thought, okay, so they just set up immediately into a B split, and obviously if you have radar, by the way, about Akuma, the thing with Akuma is that they had clean feed, right? So if somehow they were found out that, this Croatia team had a clean feed, then you would kind of just ban the whole team, right? If it wasn't literally like detected cheats, is what I meant to say. Anyways, when I initially saw this, I was like, oh, they're just set up into a B split, and it just so happens that, you have the other team here is not set up on B, right? Because even if you have radar, if you go somewhere at the beginning of the round, you're kind of committing to that. You don't know where your opponents are actually setting up necessarily beforehand. But we have a couple of times in this game, like what I just showed, is that this player just sits in spawn for a second and then decides where to go afterwards. And I mean, maybe he was AFK, he didn't have utility, right? He could have just, gone to use the bathroom during the anti-eco. I don't want to try and like accuse people too heavily that like maybe not everyone on their team is cheating, or you never know if like a ban was done in error, right? So I want to give them a bit of the benefit of the doubt to say whether or not they really definitely were cheating. But this game does raise some pretty hefty suspicions, I would say, as to what's exactly going on. But the kind of crazy thing, honestly, is that somehow Israel actually makes this a really close game, despite what we're going to be seeing. So Mackie holding the flank, this is normal. He's got 20 health, so getting to this side, trying to get into the off angle makes a lot of sense. But what is weird though is that he stays here now. Generally, you're safe to hold the flank. Like if you do a rush B and your team gets the first couple of kills, you can hold the flank, right? Because your team is winning. But when your team on the B side is losing, like imagine for a second this player didn't come through apartments and he was just coming up cat, right? Then Sego is going to get isolated. And he's like, the CTs could be like running out here and here at this moment. And Maki won't be able to move into position without running, which if someone was cat would give away his position, right? So basically by standing there, you are fully gambling that the CTs are flanking, essentially. If the CTs aren't flanking, you're kind of screwed there, I think. Then he's got 20 health, so not biting on the fake, I think is totally reasonable. With 20 health, if you move up there, the guy's just going to hit you with one bullet and you're going to die. So whether or not, he's cheating, I don't think is too relevant. You either hope that he sticks it and you just go for it and you're right or you're wrong, or you just hope that he doesn't stick it there. I think with 20 health from that position, I think he has no real other option to go for. Now, in this case, again, they are just immediately setting up for some sort of A hit, right? RB Furious does, again, something a little odd. You would usually expect there's other ways to throw that smoke, right? So, like, do you need to go to the A side to throw that smoke? But then the question is, why would he go back if they see that the CTs are stacking towards B? So, there's lots of different reasons that necessarily wouldn't make sense. And Maki, if he knew a guy was on top of balcony, does he need to throw the molly like that? He could get swung on as he's throwing it and all that, right? But Maki's dead. Everything in this round looks pretty much normal. We've got the very late lurk from RB Furious. We've got the CT aggression trying to take control, which makes perfect sense. This angle from Sego is a little odd if they didn't know 3 players were CT. So he is in the open, could definitely be getting shot right now from jungle, which is not clear, but he does have a teammate watching this, so I guess that's reasonable. And I think the smoke looked like it was covering that shortly beforehand, and then he does pivot over to look at it, so it's not completely unreasonable what he's doing. And then RB Furious is pretty much doing his job, making his way up cat, right? And they're just going to end up mowing them down coming through CT. So the round ended up being relatively normal, right? It wasn't anything too crazy. It's RB Furious that does a lot of weird stuff in spawn, I feel like, that he kind of moves in different directions sometimes off of spawn. So again, it's interesting, I think it was very specific circumstances that allowed Akuma to get a clean feed and see basically the clean feed. By the way, I believe my understanding is that it's like betting companies have like a kind of live feed to the game, whereas it goes out on broadcast on a delay. So if like a betting company for the event managed to, if they gave it to a team, then that team would have that. But I'm not sure if every event actually does that, or I'm not sure exactly how that happens in every event, so it's really hard to say. But that's kind of what I'm interested in. It would be very similar to a radar, right? Now, what's really weird here, okay, so they went heavy in middle, right? Which is, usually you have your A, like lurker A, right? You'll have a guy go underpass, right? But if you're only going to have one lurker, well, actually, yeah, if you're only going to have one lurker, you generally probably want them underpass, rather. But usually you're going like 1-3-1. You don't see too many teams like overload top middle just for a default like this. I don't feel like that often. They're just overloading a default, but there's nothing crazy about that. It's just odd that they don't have an A lurker. Because, what's odd about it is that they're going to end A, right? This is a very weird rotate to go back around to A. Once Palace is cleared or ramp is cleared, like especially this angle here, it's a really hard angle to clear, So if you're going to have any idea of ending A, unless something goes crazy, like weird, right? But they killed an Opera on cat. That would kind of make you want to go B, which is very natural because your player can go through underpass and make his way back into B apartments. It's really easy to pivot back over there, right? All you've done is you've taken mid control and killed the player on cat. but then they're going to 4-man stack inside of connector just to walk into A. There could be things that could happen that would turn a non-A lurk round into an A hit, but it is very weird to like not go for an A hit to begin with. You just go for mid control, then you don't really even see that much go on. Maybe Shushan is maybe he's their connector player, so maybe they were thinking, okay, now they don't have a connector player. I guess you could give them that benefit of the doubt. But anyways, you can't clear everything here. You just can't. So they end up clearing CT, and then Mackey's going to plant. He's safe from Palace, and sometimes you just have to do this, right? You just have to like, okay, you'll see teams do this. They'll clear out CT, and then they'll just hope that he's not Palace, and then when they can, they'll go back for it. But what is really odd to me, everyone's been in this situation, right? You like plant here, or this could happen on any map, and you're worried that like, if he's Palace, I'm dead here. You know what you do when that happens? You look at Palace, right? Like, what? Okay, so Palace, he's gambling Palace isn't clear. Well, he's dead if the guy comes out ramp. You look ramp, right? Like, am I crazy? Like, if you think ramp is where the guy's coming from, where if you're screwed if he comes out ramp, you look ramp, right? You're not, like, staring CT. He also could have, like, another thing that would have made a lot of sense is if you let the T's, if he waits and he just like, because he could sit under balcony or something maybe. He could hold for a second for the T's to clear CT, and then they could turn around and cover ramp. But he just immediately starts, like, CT isn't even clear right now. They could just be fighting CT, and then he has to stop planting. This is kind of, to me, crazy that he's, and now he's worried about ramp, of course, now. The A player, this is the A player, by the way, he walked all the way through T-spawn, which is probably why they went up connector like that. To me, it was just crazy. To me, that whole sequence there is crazy, and that's what is kind of making me think, yeah, they've got something, and again, the question is, like, does the whole team know? They're definitely all playing pretty weird, right? And here's another round where I think someone moves the opposite direction off of spawn, right? And again, it's going to be an A stack for the CTs, and the Ts kind of wiggle around in spawn for a little bit, and then they end up making their way over to B. And if you're not paying attention to the way they're moving in spawn, it looks like they just set up correctly, but they're not. They're kind of delaying at spawn a little bit oddly. Now, what is weird though is that they actually decide to go back over to A. So they set up B early, they get smoked off, and then they do actually move over towards the heavily stacked bomb site. I mean, they go there in kind of the best possible way if you're coming up connector, coming through jungle, especially if you know your opponents are saving, you know they have pistols, then this is duels that you want to be taking. But I mean, at what point are you getting into like, you're getting too much into like the mind games of like, oh, well, this means they're not cheating because they're moving into the bomb site. Oh, but like they're doing this because they know that it would be too blatant if they weren't doing this. Like at some point you're like reading a little too much into the mind games. What we can say for sure is they were set up to go to the wrong bomb site, and then they decided to go back and hit A, right? Which was the wrong bomb site, sorry. So they were set up B to go to the right bomb site, and then they decide to like move back and A. So again, out middle, they don't throw the smoke that most teams are throwing that like actually fully clears the cross, but I mean, I don't know why that really matters. Mackey's just willing to fight in mid. They're playing some kind of weird defaults. Although Crocop like went for an A ramp pick, which is not like crazy. If you have the spawn with the op, you'll go for that pick sometimes, try and kill the connector cross, and then you can move your way back over to support middle, which doesn't seem too weird. You have Sego clearing underpass fairly safely, fairly slowly, that is, and Mackie is just gonna, they've been smoking top con pretty much the whole game. And this time around, Mackey's just going to decide, you know, I don't have a smoke. Our only smokes are on, like, the top mid player. I'm just going to go for a peek here. And he's peeking directly into a double peek, right? So, as far as that goes, I mean, that if you're looking at your radar and you see two players there, you probably know that you shouldn't, you know, you're going to die if you go for that peek. So, in his defense, you know, that is, like, a peek you probably wouldn't normally want to be going for. And here, they've got a clear underpass again. That was it felt a little odd, but I don't think it is. I think I don't go underpass, so I don't know exactly how you might clear that. It feels like if he's going to clear that and he knows the player's there, he's probably going to clear it without shift walking the whole way. But regardless, this is admittedly, like, this is kind of wild, but if you look at it from Mackey's POV, right, he's going to see a player that is back turned looking the wrong direction. A flash pops, he doesn't peek out. I think it's very possible that a legitimate player could kind of, to some extent, see that coming. They could see, like, something's kind of weird here. Someone definitely feels like someone could be, you know, going for a boost and be kind of ready for that, because the guy's got his back turned, right? That's just so weird. Then he's going to make his way into connector with his back turned to Cat. Okay, so look, if you have a guy on Cat that gets boosted and he dies, right? One of the things you might expect the CTs to do is to aggress up Cat again. You would think that's a definite possibility, but he just, like, jumps up, runs through, doesn't think about Cat at all. I guess maybe his teammate on the bench is supposed to be, like, watching that. I guess that's maybe the idea. But that is wild to just, like, to just leave that entirely, okay? And then you've got a 2v1. So, I mean, this game, it's 6-2 to begin with, but this game does get pretty close, actually. This time around, you're going to be going for a, looks like kind of a set-up A split. Spawn window smoke from Crocop, then he's going to make his way over to ramp, so you got the double lurk coming out, which is kind of what you're expecting. And then from top mid, you've got Sego. They're seeing some aggression in middle, so a lot of the time the response you're going to be looking for as an A player is you are actually going to be looking to lurk out onto the A bomb site. Try and make sure that you lurk out fast enough that the connector player isn't looking back at you in Palace by that time. You have Crocop lurking out at the same exact time, so he's going to try and catch, you know, they're going to try and 2v1 the player on A site, which is exactly what you want to be doing. And he's going to hit a pretty nice shot there, turn it into a 4v2. But I think this round doesn't actually go anywhere. Yeah, this round doesn't go anywhere. So I was going to skip this round, but then Crocop actually gets like a ridiculous 3 or 4K here. So I want to actually look at what that looks like. So Mackey's out top mid. He hasn't seen anybody in window yet. So it is the fact that they don't clear right side window, like even if you don't expect someone there, is kind of wild. And then the way he clears market is crazy. It's almost like one of those peaks where it's like, oh, I know that's empty. I don't need to clear it. And then you're like, no, I'm not supposed to know that's empty. I'm not supposed to know that that's empty. Let me quick turn around and actually double check. Like if you see Mackie clear that, he actually, when he does clear that, he clears that much more effectively relative to the way Crocop did there, where he's like almost forgot that market even existed for a second. Although of course, like if you know they're top con, I'm not sure if he did know they were top con, but if you know they're top con, then you can change things up a bit. So he's again going to go for this A site pick. He's actually going to get the kill, so that means there's no connector player, so Mackie can move down middle a lot more quickly. Underpass player is clearing underpass basically the same way he has the entire game. But this does just feel weird. Like connector or underpass has basically been completely ignored by Mackie this entire game. And then admittedly, I mean, it's when they kill the connector player, so he knows he can get aggressive down mid. But a lot of the time, like, it feels like they get a kill and he wants to get into connector as quickly as possible, and they just ignore underpass. And he was already committed to clearing underpass before his teammates ever even made contact in underpass, right? And that's just something he's completely ignored for pretty much the entire game otherwise. Now again, they're just going to hit into A, straight up connector. This is a much more reasonable scenario to do it in, right? They're 4v2. They kind of know, well, you know, they have to hit either site, and a CT can be pushed up on either side. And you can see Crocop is visibly worried about these positions, and they clear CT before they ever like try and plant, right? Like they're thinking clear CT, then plant, and worry about these types of backwards locations. So Crocop, like, for planting the bomb, it feels a lot more reasonable the way he's kind of played it, comparatively. And then just 2v1, Crocop Mackie spots the guy towards stairs. Krokop knows he's there. This guy's either got to come over to the right to try and clear Krokop, or he's got to strafe around towards Ticket, which is what he's going to do. So you can kind of intuit your way around the box correctly in that situation relatively easily, unless the guy like does some weird fake and then comes back around, right? That's like, that'd be kind of 300 IQ. So you've got, again, just yet another mid take. They're not really, I mean, they're kind of dominating the mid-control battle, so it makes a lot of sense to like speed it up a little bit. But this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, he just jumps up to window without even clearing underpass. And like, admittedly, the CTs had just died in underpass in the previous round, right? So you're not really necessarily expecting someone to be underpass, but they could double underpass to try and overload that single player that's underpass that they killed last round. They could actually, I mean, they got the kill in underpass last round, and they got traded because their connector player died. So they could just play a player connector that doesn't die crossing, and then that underpass player could do the same exact thing. It wouldn't be out of the realms of possibility for a CT to go underpass this round. And he doesn't clear it at all, and I think his teammate hadn't cleared it by that time either, right? Like, his teammate was like playing further back, and he just did not clear it even a little bit. What the hell happened over here on the other side of the map? In T-spawn. So you got the triple push through A. Well, double push, one guy goes back. He's going to make contact. And then you've got RB Furious who's just going to run, knife out, try and grab the bomb, and he just gets absolutely destroyed. Okay, so the CTs have like an interesting position here now. Yeah. And I guess this is just going to end, you know, pretty quickly, probably in their favor. All right, so pistol round. I know the first couple rounds of this half, the first several rounds of this half really aren't very interesting, so I'm going to skip a couple of them. And there's some big pauses for like tech delays or whatever. Okay, here we finally have like the first real true round of the half. Okay, so we're still looking at Mackie. He's going to be playing B this round, or Catwalk at least. Short B for you Europeans. On the A side, you've got Sego just jump spotting Ticket, which is kind of what you're expecting in this situation. And then you've got this kind of tandem in middle. This is like something you see a lot from Spirit. Donk will be down here. Zontix will be up near top, or near the top of Cat, trying to fight in towards top middle. You'll notice that he's actually aiming. Mackie is definitely aiming for the head here, which is very dissimilar to what you see from Zontix. No, he's aiming for the neck area. You know, high chest area. But Meztal with the donk slide, no, he's just crouching up and down or whatever. You can see how hard that was to hit, but I don't know why I'm going on about this. We're trying to see if they're cheating. I should have skipped this round too, shouldn't I? Yeah, I should have skipped this round too. Why didn't I skip that round too? Okay, finally, we've got them on guns again. Mackie this time is going to start towards A. It's not like the T's have done anything kind of like back to back to back, so I don't think there's any reads, but you do want to go for this play once in a while. I think when you go for the op peek into Palace isn't normally exactly how teams usually play this, but to be fair, I mean, Team Croatia have been playing a little differently, I think, than what the meta necessarily is at all times. I think they're playing relatively puggy, which is fine. It is a mixed team, so that's kind of what you're expecting. The smoke into ramp is, you know, generally normal, and then he's just going to be up on balcony here, trying to play the angle and get things done. Now, he can't actually be killed from connector here. The guy would have to be stairs, but it is kind of natural to be worried about that. That's fair. You got the op CT, so he just really has to worry about this, but I think Meztal just spotted his gun, which, because he was looking that way, and the M4A1S is like 20 feet long, but I mean, once this happens, oh, okay, Don Salted actually pushed through B, didn't he? Okay, this is actually the crazy part of this round. So what you have here is you have like an A stack, right? RB Fury, you have nobody mid. RB Furious is going to be trying to cover it. You have the guy coming up from short, but they're just not in like a very heavy mid setup. You're very aggressively positioned at A, and then you have Don Salted is going to molly deep apartments and then push apartments. After Blue Phoenix is spotted in Palace too, like if this was like Team Spirit, I'd be like, maybe they're like their coach is like counter-stratting or something, right? When they have a player Palace, they never have a player apartments. But it's like, guys, we're stacking A here. Like we're heavy stacked A. We're kind of giving up mid. How do we lose this run? Well, if our B player dies. So B player, what are you doing? I'm just gonna push into apartments. How far into apartments? Oh, the whole way. I'm just gonna push into T spawn. It's like, bro. Bro, our whole setup is like, please go A, just like don't die B. What do you mean you're pushing in through B to T spawn? What do you mean? What do you mean your whole team is A? What are you doing? Oh my god, dude. This is like what your Face It teammates do, but they're not cheating. So they do this and they die and you just lose the round immediately. But I mean, once Dawn Sultan gets into T-spawn, they know it's A, right? So there's like any radar wouldn't really matter, you know it's there, they're setting up A at that point. Although to be fair, like they could still have actually been several players in middle and he didn't seem concerned about that. Like when you walk through B apps, sometimes you're like, should I take flank mid or should I flank A? And when you have 3 players on A, you might even think about flanking mid because if the guys just go up cat, you only have 1 player there. But, you know, he flanked A, which was the correct call. And then, so last round, it was like an A hit coming out of the other team. This time around, they're going to be setting up towards B. This time around, Mackie is not going to smoke ramp. And look, it's not that this is like impossible, of course, in that, like, you know, some teams still play like heavily on the mind games, right? Players play on the mind games. Oh, I threw a smoke this round, it worked out, they're not going to expect it next round, I'm going to try and catch them off guard, right? Like you're going to see people do that, right? And to give them the most possible benefit of the doubt, that is what they could be doing. But when you play this heavy, I feel like on trying to mind game people, you will get heavily punished for it at least a couple times a game, you know? Because you're just like, you're going to catch some crazy flanks, but you're also just going to get punished for it. And the reason I back up, by the way, so Crocop gets his kill, he's going to kill the Opera in mid, and then he instantly rotates B, which is crazy. It's crazy the T's just happen to be setting up B apps at the same time, and he's rotated B before his teammates ever spotted them. Now, Dawn Salted, he opened with a Molly last round. This round, he has no Molly. I guess he messed up his buy, but yeah, I mean, sometimes you're going to open with a nade anyways, so he opens with a nade, spots them. Now is when the rotate, it would make sense for Crocop to be rotating over. Although, again, they did get shut down heavily at B, or at A the previous round, so maybe you're thinking they're going to react to B, and teams, some teams are like almost very readable like that, because they lose on one site and they're just, well, we'll try the other, and it's kind of like a yo-yo. And in terms of RB Furious getting aggressive, Crocop killed the mid Opera, and then there was no other flashes in middle, right? So this is a play, like, especially I said their play in middle a couple rounds ago was kind of similar to the Spirit play. This is a play you might see Donk do. But it's just, what's crazy is just how these aggressions are never getting punished. You know what I mean? Like, they're doing these hyper aggressive plays that put them in these insane positions, but they're never getting punished for it. And setting up in middle with 3 players when you already have a guy in that corner is also a little odd. Like, look, if they cancel a B hit, and it looked like, you know, based on all the information they had, it was, the other team was probably going for a B hit, right? You cancel that, more often than not, the B side, that team is going to make their way over to middle. That's just kind of the typical reaction, but they could still go back A. It's not like A is completely, you know, completely untended, like, impossible is what I mean to say. Although, you know, having a player pivot top mid to help that player in that corner so you bait form a little bit is, you know, something you might expect. But why do you need 3 players in middle? That does seem a little bit on the crazy side. Maybe even one of them might want to be looking underpass, right? Instead of like top mid. Like if Sego had been looking underpass, then maybe it kind of makes sense. But still, you stuff a B hit, you're still thinking they're either going to go, they could still go A or B. It's not like they have to go through middle. There's no reason they need to go through middle here. And then you have a 2v3. And I think, I mean, with Crocop in this spot, the T's should kind of just be screwed. But I mean, you've got the score line. It's 10-9 already. It's actually kind of crazy. I mean, it's 11-9 now, but it's kind of crazy how close this game has actually gotten. Now, the T's did kind of control the economy at the beginning of the game, right? So, or at the beginning of the half. So, you had several saves from Croatia. Anyways, there's a molly into ramp, a flash over, and this time he's going to be smoking it. And the thing is, the thing that is that matters is that in the previous round, so when I'm talking about mind games, the previous round, the T's Did they know that the CTs pushed ramp? Well, they know that that Krokop was eventually pushed up ramp, right? But they don't know when that happened, right? Because they know that the CTs did spot out what was a B hit, so they were kind of like ready. And if at that point you're going to push ramp. So do they know that Mackie pushed up ramp early? No, they don't know that. So mind game wise, changing from a smoke to not a smoke is kind of just not necessarily seeing like the greatest like excuse for that. Again, it's not crazy. Sometimes you smoke ramp, sometimes you don't. Like every team has like a bit of variance there because you need to have some variance. Sometimes you're gonna have an op CT and you don't necessarily want to smoke ramp when you have an op CT, so you need to do it sometimes when you don't have an op CT, right? But usually you'll be like doubled A or you'll be jump spotting when you do that. Not like last round where he was completely solo. And then this round, he just decides to throw a smoke. And the T's, it looked like the T's wanted to set up for some sort of A hit here early, but then they got smoked off and they're like, I don't know if I really want that. And I think Meztal might have actually spotted RB Furious cross. Yeah, it looks like he probably did. So in this case, I think they're going to try and pivot back so that they can actually punish RB Furious for playing this angle. RB Furious is so aggressive in middle here. The fact that he stays, and by the way, the timing on this molly. So like, people throw underpass mollies usually pretty quickly. Okay, he is running. All right, he is running. All right, okay. I thought he walked the whole way, and I was like, what the fuck? So he walked initially. If you're gonna throw an underpass molly, usually you throw it fairly early because you can actually have a T get through underpass very quickly. If they like walk the whole way, it's like surprisingly fast how quick they can get there. But the T did make noise, so I'll give him a break there. But the T's are putting a good amount of pressure mid. They also had a player underpass, so ending B is not at all out of the realm of possibility. They could just like contact out B right now, and it would be Dawn Salted alone with no rotate even close by and no utility to hold on to it for. But you have RB Furious that after being pushed off of middle, he was pushed off of middle by 3 players. Look, again, this is not a play you're expecting from someone that's like theoretically having kind of a bad game. He's 10 and 15, right? He's not having the greatest game ever. This is a game. This is what you're expecting people to do when they're like carrying, right? When they're having a really good game. You could see Donk do that. I could see lots of players like Elige do that if they're, if their aim's on point. It is kind of wild to do that aggressively in this type of situation, though, when you're not necessarily having a perfectly good game, and it's a very close game, which means you can't necessarily afford to give away kills like that could easily prompt, like, just, if he dies in top mid here, if he died, this round would be gone to shit, like, instantly. It really would be completely fucked. But he's like instantly flanking. Now, he did hear the guy, so, I mean, once he's in this position, then the rotates are going to come in. Everything makes sense. It's getting into that position that, like, is kind of wild, But still, somehow, despite a 4A stack, it turns into a 2v2. And one of the things about this flank is in maybe like 10 seconds, if the CT in jungle doesn't make any noise, eventually this flank is going to feel like it's probably coming in. And not only that, but I think Israel here is... I think they're paranoid. Like, the flanks are coming in every round, so they're just like, oh, nobody's peeking me CT? He's going to be flanking. I bet he's fucking flanking again. And he is. He is flanking again. Molly into Palace. I mean, you're kind of expecting that, but did they see this guy go into Palace? Like, he could easily be on... Oh, here's the guy running Palace. Okay, I was going to say he could easily be like Firebox or Default or something. But he gets mollied off. Shushan was already spotted by the player ramp. And Phoenix gets the one, swing, and he's going to win the 1v1. So, despite having a 4A stack and a T spawn flank, it's going to be another round going the way of the likely non-cheaters. I mean, we can't be too sure. We haven't been analyzing their gameplay, but I don't think they're cheating. They haven't been banned. And here, again, there's the molly, then no smoke. I mean, Maki has his own molly, so dying here is a big deal. And I've seen Silvers clear a ramp with more conviction for their angle clears than Maki, okay? He nades, okay? That's an okay clear. What do you mean? What is this clear? What are you clearing? Like, if anyone's in any of these angles, if anyone even is here, he's just fucking completely dead. And he's just like, I mean, it's 11-10, right? This is when you go like hard, right? If you are cheating, this is when in matchmaking the people turn on their spin bar, right? That like, please, if you're playing against me, man, and you're cheating, just spin from round 1. Like, why waste our time? Why waste my time, dude? Let's get it over with. Anyways, they're just like in a 3B stack, and Mackie just pushes straight through A. Did they do something weird at spawn? Like, did they sit around and spawn again? Because we've seen that a couple times where they just kind of sat around and spawn at the very beginning. It looks like RB Furious is gonna, yeah, he's gonna go through A. So yeah, everything looks normal. Krokop is gonna open in window. Oh, he's gonna open for the ladder jump, which is like pretty much standard. So they didn't open 3B, they opened 2B, and Krokop went for this play, which is, you know, fairly normal. Nothing out of the ordinary here. He's in a pretty good spot. Mackie's just walk pushing through T-spawn, because fucking why not? You know, why not? Why not just walk push through T-spawn? And there, what is this? What is going on? Okay. So they just, for some reason, 2 players went into market, and then, I mean, I guess at this point, you have your player in T-spawn, so you're like, okay, they're going B. But by the way, usually when you get a player in T-spawn, usually he's like, guys, they could come out Palace. Like, Palace is a concern. So you might even have your opper, like, check this, or, like, even be over here. Like, here, this would be a decent spot, I guess, because you can, like, worry about Palace, and you can clear connector. Like, maybe that would be an okay spot. But you're still worried about Palace. It's not like A is actually clear. A is not actually completely clear, you know? It's not something like you could completely ignore it to the point that you have 2 players in market that were both looking at the same spot at the same time. I don't think we were quite in that position. Then Mackie, Shushan is just completely paranoid, isn't he? He's like, oh my. Look, we've all done this before. Okay, admit it. You're like, I'm walking through T-spawn. Where else am I gonna look? I may as well just look at the flank. I may as well just watch the flank because I'm walking through. They've been flanking all game. May as well just watch the flank. I don't lose anything by watching the flank, and then you walk into a wall. We've all been there, okay? On this map or another, especially on this map. That is an awkward doorway to get through when you're looking at T-spawn. I don't know. The question now is like, is Mackie walling or is he using radar? Because that peek was like unbelievably perfectly timed. Like, people are saying radar, and I've seen some people be like, no, the whole team was cheating blatantly. And I'm like, if I'm giving a verdict right now, would you look at that? Mackie's playing back on A ramp again. I'm giving them way too much benefit of the doubt. They've literally already been banned. they have quite literally already been banned. They get the initial kill, and then Krokop, who, when the opponents were setting up B apartments, got a kill and immediately rotated market before seeing anyone, gets a kill, and immediately rotates to look at A ramp. Yeah, it's super reasonable. Nobody's worried about underpass, of course, because why would you be? Although, from the first attempt at recording this, I believe Sego does just randomly die to someone coming out underpass, so he might just literally just not be worried about underpass on average, and then just hope he doesn't die to it. Yeah. So he dodges the flash. Technically, he doesn't actually see anybody there. So the T's, by the way, were setting up A. Then they got smoked off, and they decided to go back to middle, which is fine. Technically, Sego doesn't see anybody there. I mean, it implies, right? The flash implies that the T's are, you know, there's going to be a few players there, at least 2 or 3, but he doesn't literally see anybody. You know what I mean? It does make a difference. What's surprising, though, is that like, Mackie's not already pushing here when they seem like the T's probably are setting up towards middle or setting up for something in B. Sego's going to end up smoking off catwalk here and then getting in the corner. This is always feels uncomfortable because I feel like I get spammed in this corner all the time, but it doesn't really matter. Shushan is going to be, I mean, you're 3v5 here, so this is the play you kind of have to make. You have to find a kill somewhere. You have to do something other than just like, if you just try and hit into the B site, you trade down and you end up in a 1v3, it's kind of like game over, right? So he's going to try and at least get some, maybe he can find a kill, and then they go for the B hit right afterwards. It's going to make a lot of sense. It's actually likely to work out. But unfortunately for him, Mackie finally drops off a balcony after being, I'd say, fake worried about an A hit for like 20 minutes. Clears that. And then, of course, the next thing to worry about is the cat play. but it actually doesn't go that well, and Don Salted is going to finish out the game. So I'd say at the very least, I wouldn't be typing GG at the end of this game.